But before that, just to tell you a little bit more about the Springboard 2021 and the Entrepreneurs Collective. So Springboard 2021 is a series of 15 free events that we've pulled together to help startups. We know that last year was a tough year for a lot of startups, so we want to do our bit to give you a great start to 2021. So we've compiled a list of brilliant speakers, pitch events, and workshops where you can meet other founders and investors with the aim to help you to start the year strongly, and especially during these COVID times, we're giving you some great workshops to work through. But a little bit more about Entrepreneurs Collective and myself. So our workshops are aimed at founders, and we try and deal with all the pain points that founders come across. And how do I know about this? Because I'm a founder myself now a couple of times, but originally I was a lawyer. So I started off working in compliance, data protection, international sanctions, and I went a bit rogue a few years ago. And having worked in an accelerator, I decided that I would build my own company. So I launched, I built a dating app. No experience of anything to do with building apps, no experience of B2C marketing, no experience of dating apps. I actually never used a dating app at that point. So it was a very steep learning curve. A lot of things went wrong. I hired, my development didn't work first time around. I got some bad referrals. I hired mentors, some of which worked out, some of which didn't. I spent all my money in year one and still didn't have a working product. So I really struggled to fundraise or get into any VCs. And I really struggled to find a community to go and ask for help or advice. And I sort of feel if I'd had that community, that I could have avoided a lot of these mistakes. Luckily for me, at the point where I was about to run out of money, I came across, I pulled together a group of 10 other founders, and we decided to host a pitch event. So we said, well, look, we're all founders who need investment. Let's help each other. So we all brought a few investors each to this event, and we all managed to get fundraising for our startups. And that was where Entrepreneurs Collective was born, from founders helping founders. And that's our sort of mission statement, which is we believe that the person best placed to help a founder is another founder. And that's why at Entrepreneurs Collective, we try and offer all the benefits that we can to help you to succeed. So we do events such as this one, and our pitch events and networking sessions. We also offer, mentorship. We have, I think, over 50 partnership agreements, from 90% off HubSpot, 10,000 pounds of AWS credits, Stripe credits, IBM credits, you name it. We've generally got it, and we go out and negotiate better deals and try and get discounts for our members. We also do things on the fundraising side. We host pitch events. We have around about 400 angels and about 50 VCs associated with us now that we can go speak to. We help run reports on the sector and a whole range of things. Move on. So as I mentioned, the event tonight is part of our series of workshops. We have another one on Friday, which is aimed at getting PR for your startup. So if you're interested in that, please do register, or you can come and see it, see it same as this workshop on our website, and we will be circulating this by video as well. So before I hand over to Fiello, and if you can start getting your slides up, just a few sort of housekeeping rules for it. So in terms of the event series, we are recording this, so if you are going to ask questions, then please only ask questions that you are happy to be shared on video, because others will see this. In terms of the questions, we have a chat functionality in there. If you have a question, please pop it in when you come up with a question. The questions will generally be answered at the end of the presentation, but the speakers may, if they think it's relevant, stop and answer some of the questions as we go through. In terms of the sort of the presentation, and it should take around about 30 to 40 minutes, and we've left a good chunk of 20 minutes at the end for you to get your opportunity to ask questions about your recruitment needs from our experts. So Fiello, can we have your presentation up? Do we have it up now?
Sure, thank you.
Great. So to hand you over to Richard, an expert in his field with over 20 years experience, and Fiello, a great recruitment company and one of our partners at Entrepreneurs Collective. These guys really know what makes a startup tick, but also how to help you find the best talent to help your startup grow. And on that note, I'm going to hand you over to Richard. I'm super excited to hear what you and Kevin have to say, and looking forward to it.
Thanks very much, Michael, and welcome everybody to the workshop. Just wanted to start off by saying that obviously talent and recruitment is obviously so critical, and we will hopefully give you some pointers this evening to help you on that journey as your companies grow and pivot and grow beyond that. So hopefully everybody gets a takeaway from this and is in a position to ask us any questions towards the end. Quite a coup to get Mr. Kevin Blair involved. I'm really happy to welcome him to this event as well. Kevin, for those of you who don't know him, is one of the foremost talent thought leaders, probably globally, I would say. He would like to hear me say that. Certainly is global. Kevin's ex-IBM, where he looked after the recruitment for IBM globally. And he moved to Celonis, who are formerly would be described as a startup, but they're certainly not that now. They're certainly a scale up. So they were formed back in 2011 with their 3 founders and an idea. Hopefully everybody takes positive from this. They're now valued at $2.5 billion. And Kevin's role within Celonis is really, I suppose, to continue to make that possible by finding the people to make that growth happen and continue to grow. So great guy to have with us and to offer insight into growing your business, I think, and I'm sure you'll enjoy his presentation. So a little bit about Fiello. I'm the founder of Fiello. My background is 20 years in recruitment. I've worked with some great companies over the years, IBM being one that everybody's heard of, and indeed that's where I first worked with and met Kevin. Other companies that I've worked with, startups such as Babylon Health, Just Eat, one that everybody knows, whether that's because they've ordered the food or they've familiar with the Snoop Dogg theme tune, which is very catchy. One that's particularly relevant that we did last year was we worked with a company called Census, who were building out a brand new tech team. So I went in to help them from scratch. When I say from scratch, so in planning phase, I went in with the VP of engineering, and we did a costing exercise and planned that before he even went to budget to his CEO, and then was pivotal in recruiting the whole team from testers right through to senior software engineers to service delivery managers. So that was a great project for us to be involved in, and similar to where you guys are going to be moving to in the coming months and years. Another company that's well known, certainly in Europe, is a company called Zalando, which is one of the largest e-com tech organizations globally. Indeed, they're the #1 fashion distributor, and have plans to hire 1,000 people in tech next year. So I'm happy to say we're working with them on a specific project. So I suppose the message I'm trying to convey here is that I've been doing this for a very long time. I'm very confident in what I do. I love working with organizations of different sizes, from startups and building out these tech teams. So whatever you're looking for, we will always be able to find the right people and the time scales required, which are very often critical in that space. So that's briefly Fiello. So what's in store for you this evening? Well, I'm shortly going to hand over to Kevin, who's going to run through the current recruitment landscape in the UK. Some very positive numbers in there, I think, for everybody here, and from a certainly startup perspective. What does this mean for recruitment, for you, for your strategies? Then Kevin is going to talk about Celonis, which is a certainly interesting walkthrough for most people. And then talking about how to own your hiring and growth strategy. and then Mythbusters, which is something that will prove useful for you as you move through the gears. And then towards the end, where how we can help you, what services we can offer, or how we can help you in your journey to make things easier from that perspective. And then Kevin and I will be on hand to answer any questions that anybody has. So I think you can feel free to send those questions through the messaging, and Ben will pick those up, and we can answer those at the end, and then we'll come back to you and we'll answer them on a one-to-one basis. Okay, thanks, and hand you over now to Kevin.
Thanks, Richard. Hopefully I can do the introduction some justice. So yeah, this is a little bit about me. So I won't read through all of it. My LinkedIn's been posted in the chat there. You can check me out. So as Richard said, recently I joined for Solonis formally about 7 months ago, but I had been working with them for a little while before that, helping them scale. And that was, I moved into that having been the head of recruitment at IBM globally. So I was responsible for about 52,000 hires a year. So a completely different scale. I went from having 1,000 recruiters to now I have like 17. But nevertheless, that's an important part of some of the stuff we're going to talk about around, the potential importance of overhiring when it comes to talent and the talent space, and the importance of having your story and why people would want to go on that journey. I had scale and complexity. Did I have personal impact? Probably not as much as I'd want. So that was definitely a part of my journey. In my spare time, in inverted commas, I work actually with multiple startup and scale organizations a lot. In fact, one that I work with actually announced $300 million, $3 million, not $300 million. A $3 million Series A yesterday, a company called High People in Germany. I've been working with them since they were in stealth mode. And I didn't know if I'd be able to mention it, but they did actually announce yesterday on TechCrunch. So I was able to let you know. So those are that's a 13-person operation in Munich that I got connected when they were in stealth mode building a product, and I've helped them develop the product, take it to market, and I've actually now become a customer as well as helping them get other customers, and spend a lot of time doing non-exec and kind of keynote work as well. I'm avid charity raiser. My WhatsApp picture is me at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. I've driven a tuk-tuk 3,000 kilometers across India, all in an aid to raise money. And whether you hold it against me or not, I'm an avid and fanatical Liverpool fan, and I'm a highly average golfer. So it's a little bit about me. So let's keep moving on. Let's really talk to the content. So let's make this specific about the UK and the current landscape. So there is, as Richard mentioned, there are some positive numbers here. Primarily is the $15 billion investment into the UK and the UK landscape in terms of startups, which is huge. Hey, I see someone did the tuk-tuk race as well. So it's a huge kind of investment still pouring in spite of possibly a challenging economic climate. And also a 50% increase in tech roles. The interesting thing about the tech role growth is where it's happening and why it's happening like it is, and not primarily centered around traditional economic hubs. It's actually pervasively happening in many more cities than it used to. And, many areas like Bristol, like Manchester, et cetera, are becoming much more hubs for talent. There is a huge competition for skills. The numbers there, so we have 3 million people in tech currently. Next year, 1.1 in 5 roles will be tech or digitally focused. And by 2025, 1 in 3 will be. The reason that's important, I won't get into it now. It's not a political statement. The education system is so far behind. Believe me, what's happening in schools right now is that kids using Teams, kids using technology is actually an incredibly valuable thing, even though it's a very disruptive experience for them. I would be a huge advocate when everybody goes back to school, when things normalize, the kids do 1 day a week from home, if it's possible, just so they can experience how to work in collaboration tools. That is our future. That's a part of our world. It's really important. Anyway, not a political statement. The education system's behind, so there's a dearth of skills in the market, and we need to look at that. Global mobility is reducing. Again, whatever your views on the politics, but Brexit, post-COVID landscape. And as I mentioned before, traditional hubs being abandoned. I saw some stats recently that showed the technology job growth is up in all of the UK this year, but is actually negative growth in London. So that means people are looking at remote workers, they're looking at dispersed sites, they're looking at Bristol, Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle, Scotland, Belfast, wherever. So continuing to grow, but as a percentage of growth, really differentiates, and maybe that ties into your talent strategy. And is there enough to go around? Clearly there's not. So let's move on to the next slide. So this is part of the problem. It's a slightly recycled slide, but it's part of the problem is that, what you have here is, first of all, a convergence of previously disparate technologies. So I'd like to talk about technology specifically, but previously disparate technologies that would need to be hired for. And then there's a convergence coming together of actually, it's not as disparate, and it's not as binary as it used to be. And I just used one example of demand. So, there are currently 600, we're looking globally, 600,000 cloud, mobile, AI, IoT developers. There is 4.5 million needed this year. I was involved in an exercise about 2 years ago where IBM wanted to hire blockchain developers, and the numbers they were talking about was, they probably needed to hire somewhere around 15 to 1,700 globally. At that point, there was only 12,000 blockchain developers in the world. So we would actually literally have to hire like 14% of the market. And so that means we need to think about our talent differently. And more importantly, the competition is different. And again, I'm really focusing on tech a little bit, but what you have is companies that you don't traditionally compete with. So whether it's the fact that all companies are becoming digital consumers, so the fact that retailers, banks, HSBC probably have more people sat behind a computer than they have sat in a branch. Just as an example, I don't know for sure, but I imagine they announced a wave of closures of their retail businesses this week. So I imagine that there's these digital platforms that they're competing for talent. And so if you are a talent enabler from a tech perspective, then you're competing differently. However, that is a potentially huge advantage, because the agility of your companies and your ability to be flexible and fluid and create somebody's personal value actually puts you at a distinct advantage. I was in a meeting with a couple of C-level executives from Cisco about 4 or 5 years ago. And they put up the competitive threats to their company, and from a product perspective, they put it up on a slide, 20 companies, and at least 6 of them I'd never heard of. But what they were is they were doing an incredible thing in little garage technology shops, and they were able to attract talent and move really fluidly and offer things that we weren't able to differentiate ourselves as a company at the time. So incredibly fascinating dynamic. Okay, let's keep moving. So thanks. So what does this mean for recruitment, all this convergence, this lack of candidate availability, etc.? First of all, lots of companies are looking for similar skill sets, and that's not exclusive to technology. There is a phenomenal amount of jobs growth around high growth sectors, and there's still a deficit of skills, and I think whether that be the orientation towards very binary skills that we would look for, or actually whether it's a little bit more abstract than that, and trying to tap into some things that try away. But recruitment is hard. It's never been this hard, and it may never be this easy again. So it's only going to get harder, right? It is all about finding the right people for your company, not just finding the people for your company. Time to hire is becoming elongated, and growth plans are becoming delayed. And this becomes particularly more pertinent with the work I do, with startups and scale-ups, almost exclusively. When they do a series raise, whether it be from seed A, B, or C, or D, I've been involved in all of them. What happens is almost always there is a headcount objective, right? Because the investors know that the business needs to be scalable, and it needs to be viable, and it needs to commit to certain deliverables that are dependent on having people in place. So elongated time to hire and growth plans delayed is not an ideal situation, and makes for very uncomfortable board meetings. Inability to create product affecting the go-to-market ties into exactly what I said. Compromising on the perfect 10, hiring for human skills. So what I mean by this is, it's often the temptation, particularly when you have limited resources in the company, to really focus on, I need to hold out for the absolute right person. But when you're scaling up a company, what you need to do, and sometimes it's hard, and where I often find myself having to support, and quite often for companies I help, I actually do interviews for them. I'm like the final interviewer for several of their key roles. Is hiring for human skills is incredibly important. Hiring for learning agility and cognitive intelligence is important. Hiring for the people, because if you're scaling up, if you hire good people, they're going to be doing a different job in a year. If your business is doubling in size, that means their roles are going to have to evolve, and it's going to constrain your business if you're not hiring above. So if you're not seeing the perfect 10, you might be looking for the perfect 10 for that highly prescriptive job description that you've written, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily the person you need for your growth. Because I would take potential over kind of completeness of tangible skills every time. Now, that's not saying I drop down too far, but I'm saying an 80% with incredible potential would be much more valuable to me in a scale-up environment. Retention is critical. Exactly back to the points we've just been talking. There is always somebody, always, no matter how well you think you pay, there's always somebody with deeper pockets. There's always somebody that offers more stock. There's always somebody that offers, a certain thing that you may not be able to offer. But actually, people are motivated by different things. And as you get into understanding what they are, very often people are mission driven in their careers. And what you need to do is think about how you retain the skills in your business through the idea of continuing growth and committing yourself from a cultural perspective to developing them. And always recruitment active mentality. So, if I look at the companies that I work with, even the companies that hire just several people a year, they never stop their recruiting mentality. They always, several of the most successful people I know who've done exits, what they've been able to do is they've literally been continually meeting people. Like one of them, I remember one CEO having this objective that he wanted to interview at least one person a week. And we'll deconstruct the idea of an interview at another point. But interviews, the idea that people are candidates and that meetings are interviews, and that CVs are highly relevant documents in a recruitment process is greatly diminished, in my opinion. You should just meet people and create networks, but you should also, understand what are motivating people, what their core skills are, and have dialogue, have conversations, have coffees. Don't make people candidates. If they might not be ready to move, you want to be there when they are ready to move, or you want to be relevant when they think about it. So don't this idea around. And I think this is why I'll never be the head of a recruitment union, if there was such a thing, or the recruitment federation or whatever, is because I basically say, I'm not a big fan of CVs. I don't like job descriptions. I don't like interviews. I don't like the concept of a candidate. Careers pages can be meh. So, it's basically the tools of my 22-year career in recruitment are immediately dismissed by the fact that I think the world needs to move on a little bit. Okay, let's keep moving, please. Okay, so thinking about talent strategy. So let's keep going, because I'm conscious we might want to hit on some questions. So my experiences that I've seen is, and this is a high level, and I said I'd happily spend time with anybody because, it's a real passion and personal interest. But, there is something you go through when you scale up, and when you scale up and when you versus starting up. So when you're starting up, it's a lot about your networks and referrals. It's a lot about because you're hiring lower numbers. It's a lot about what's immediately within your touch point, and I even think Michael was talking about the hiring he did in the dating app, which, by the way, we should take offline, Michael. I've always thought there is a room for Tinder recruitment marketplace where you good candidate, bad candidate, but that's an aside. I own the IP on that. I know I've said it on a recorded call, but I'll copyright it here. But what we have the opportunity to do is is reach into your network. That pretty quickly diminishes. Your networks aren't as deep as you think. And people, often aren't able to recall or refer good people that they know. But it's good when you're in the startup. Forming partnership is important, and augmenting roles is really important. So, you would like to have, certain, you map out what you would like to have, and you probably, a lot of the time, the pockets aren't deep enough to support it. So really look at opportunities to augment roles and have people that can really, cut across 2 or 3 different elements. Key and critical hires. I'm going to come back to that because hiring agile and prioritized is really, really important. And accurately sequencing of the hires. If you have a plan that says, okay, I'm going to hire these 5 people this year, I'm going to hire these 10 people this year. And what a lot of people don't step back and think about, what's the optimal sequencing of the hiring? What do I want to hire in month 1 and what do I want to hire in month 11? right? And they just kind of say, well, I need to hire all these things. And then what they find is the business isn't optimized. And so that they do is they kind of have this whole thing where it's like, okay, well, we've got these people and they're doing good work, but actually you're pretty constrained until this person comes in. So actually be very, even at a smaller scale, be incredibly deliberate about the sequencing, because it really optimizes your team as they get in. As you get into the scale-up scenario, you'll want to start looking at talent leads or even talent teams or even a recruiter, and hire above or engage as a service. So really, elevate the thinking as going beyond just the idea of it's very situational and outcome orientated, and really think about like the service offering around talent as a whole. Want to be social and professional media. So, again, like talent brand is a incredibly important topic, because believe it or not, like in social terms and in viral terms, it's the one area where you can go toe to toe with anybody, like absolutely anybody. I did a video on LinkedIn. Feel free to check it out. I do work, like I say, with a bunch of startups. I did a video last week. It was kind of like a bit tongue in cheek. It got 38,000 views or something in the first 7 days and 500 comments on LinkedIn. And I look at content like the corporations are pushing out, they're not getting anywhere near that level of engagement. So, you truly can be differentiating bigger. You might want to start thinking about a HR team. Many scale-up, and this isn't my recruitment bias, I'll caveat that and say that, but many scale-up organizations actually defer to hiring recruitment resources before HR resources, because often HR resources, it's available, it's legal, you can get input, you can crowdsource, you can go to open source places around HR topics, and quite often a lot of the complicated stuff ends up with a lawyer anyway, so you double pay. And so many companies actually prioritize the talent organization ahead of the having a deeply rooted HR organization. It's not always the case, depends what you do, depends on your market, depends on your construct. I'm just saying, my experience is I've worked with many companies where I'm helping the talent leader and there's not even a sophisticated HR presence. And back to the talent pipeline. Scaling up is all about your future. It's all about what's next, what's now, but what's next, and decoupling the idea that recruitment is a reactive sport. It's truly not. Okay, let's keep moving along, please, Richard. Okay, so a little bit of a case study about Solana. So this is where I work in my day job. Phenomenal company, but a phenomenally aggressive growth. And as Richard said, we hit the kind of the high valuation a little over a year ago. 2.5 billion. We've 100, triple digit growth this year, triple digit growth on headcount, and we're dealing with some interesting challenges. So first of all, as a company, if you look at our current size, we're about 1,150 people as an organization, so reasonably large now as a scale up. But what we've done is, if you rewind back just even as little as 3 years ago, we were sub 100, right? So our scale up journey around being triple digit growth has been phenomenal. It literally goes that quickly. We're a SaaS company. We operate in process mining and enterprise management solutions. And so what we're dealing with is like a bunch of strange problems, actually. So if you think, I joined the company in June, so formally in June. I've been working with it for a great deal of time before that, but I became an employee in June. I've only ever met 2 people in the company personally, and I actually met them on holiday over the New Year. They happened to be in the same holiday location as me at New Year, and so I met them out of the country, because I was out of the country for a period of a few weeks, and so I've had to assimilate to a new environment without ever meeting anybody. By the time we exit our financial year in May, we will be probably pushing, give or take, maybe 1,500 people. When I joined, we were maybe 750. So that's presenting us with a really weird problem to solve as a company. Is 50% of our company have joined in a COVID era, right? And so the dynamics of how do you onboard, assimilate, and continue to recruit, it's actually been phenomenally not that disrupted as a thing to say, like, there's no excuse for not recruiting during COVID, because myself and the work that I'm doing and my team, and then many other companies I work with, maybe they planned for it, a disruption, but it didn't actually come, and things are going really well. So it's from our point of view, scale at which we're operating is obviously bigger, but obviously the opportunity for growth from a talent perspective remains very high, and just slight adjustments meant we've been very successful. Okay, so continuing to move on. Okay, so talking about owning your hiring, growth, and strategy. So first of all, like, have an EVP and own your story. Like, this is critically important. I talked about it before, about what are anchor points and how you can really compete. So if you don't, no matter what your size, no matter who you want to talk to, you want to hire the best people, right? And the best people will connect with your story. And so, this is just a screenshot of some stuff I do around having a really strong narrative around the story we're trying to tell. And, like I said, we have this document that really like reinforces who we are as a company. It talks to our values, it talks to sustainability, but really important around understand what your employee value proposition is. Even if you're like 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 people, it's really, really important that you understand who you are, what you're identifiable as an employer, what you're able to offer, and what your story is, because it really does differentiate you and make a difference. So moving on, please, Rich. I couldn't oversimplify this enough, and so what are the kind of anchor points I think of when I think of recruitment? It's very, very simple, and I have used this slide many times when talking about hiring 52,000 people a year, which was what my team used to do. Right? It comes to these three things, right? How do we simplify our approach to our hiring? How do we have organizational clarity about what we want to do and how we want to execute it? And how do we have communication so that we're all completely synchronized? And I'll come back to that in a second about the personas in the interview process, so that we're all synchronized and the candidate understands what we are, who we are, and why we're having this dialogue with them. And so owning that whole story, driving a simplistic process. I mean, it's sometimes a temptation. It's sometimes some of the longest and most elongated processes I've seen have been with some of the smallest companies, because they want everybody to be involved, and they identify that's a really important part of their culture. Everybody involved might be okay, but actually everybody being involved is might not be adding something to the process, right? And these are the things you need to think about as you move through the different gears of growth. So if we could click on. So from a hiring process perspective, some of the things I kind of like elevate up to these points, and like I say, I usually go a lot deeper with people I work with and companies I try and help, as partners interview and conduct first sift. So it's really important that it's aligned to the highest point in the company, and the people who are directly connected to what the mission of the company is actually are able to, kind of get the first pass and connect with the candidate first of all. That then leads into being able to assess correctly. So I talked before about assessing for human skills and looking not just beyond the, sometimes arbitrary job descriptions that get written that just talk to a bunch of skills, but actually don't talk to the person, is actually really focused around you making sure you're assessing correctly for the person you want. Each role will differ. I'll come back to that in a second, because recruitment is not a sport of socialism. Not every role has equitable value. Not every role has the same outcomes or the same kind of value to the organization. Therefore, you shouldn't look at every role through the same lens of a process. Professional and streamlined with use of people who are trained. Like I say, companies, they get everybody to meet everybody. But what's the persona? What's the candidate experience if I go in and I have the same interview 5 times, right? Because they've all learned to interview off each other. It doesn't really add anything to me from a journey perspective. It probably doesn't add anything to you as a company from an insights perspective. So what's really important is adopt this license to hire. Have I qualified the people I'm going to ask to interview to actually interview, right? And what's their persona? If I think of myself as the cultural guardian of this company, like I set up this company and I have to make sure that we recruit people in the right image that are going to create this value. Have somebody else test for something else, right? It doesn't have to be just like, yeah, everyone does the same thing and no one understands. So when you get feedback, you're pulling on an ecosystem of 2, 3, 5 different perspectives that give you a better picture of the person you're going to hire. Your hiring will be more successful, right? It will be more successful if you give people personas to interview against. What's your role in that interview? Okay, convey the vision. I mentioned before the EVP, so we don't need to go too deep on that. And take your candidates on the journey. Have them emotionally connect with the company, right? You're going to be competing with other people for talent most of the time. What you want is them to have emotional connection. Let them control a part of the journey. Let them get to a comfort level. Don't give them 5 interviews and offer them a job. And they're like, oh yeah, but like, I didn't really see much of your offices, or I didn't really meet the people I wanted to meet, or I don't know, like, what's this, what's that? Like, be comfortable enough to let them control some of the process, own 75% of it yourself, but let them drive it so they get to a position scale. And then the final one is be agile, which is really important. So work on a process of your roles being backlogged and being prioritized. So let's skip on because I'm very conscious of time. So this is a little model. Like, feel free to screen grab this. This is what I have used with organizations that are very, very small, and I've used exactly the same model with IBM and Cisco. Right? What this is deconstructs the idea that recruitment and talent is an egalitarian process, that everything is equal. They are not. They are not equal. They do not every role has equal value to the business, and not every role will have different degrees of hiring complexity. Some jobs you could write a LinkedIn post and a couple of people share it, and you could easily hire people like that. You want to hire machine learning engineers, like, that's probably not the best way to do it. So that's a high degree of hiring complexity, and that could apply to anything. That could apply to rev rec accountants are very high in demand. Like, the hiring complexity is they've got some hyperinflation on salaries and stuff. So there's all different things. So thinking about using a simple 9 block, they say people in HR love a 9 block, right? But taking a simple 9 block and plotting, if you have 5 roles, plot them in this model. What's hard to hire and what's a higher priority? That will tell you in an agile way where you should spend your time and your resources and your efforts. And what you'll very quickly, even very simplistically, screenshot this, cut this out, pin it on the wall, use colored pins for different roles. It will tell you where you should spend your time from a recruiting perspective, right? And it will mean that you get a much more valuable outcome, because what you don't want to do is hire the low value, low complexity roles quickly and then still be sat there in 12 months trying to hire the high complexity. Do things in the right level of sequencing and in the things that add the most value to the company. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so some of the myth busters, I think, with the end of my little segment here. So some myth busters I wanted to share with you. Candidates only want the next best pay level. That is not true. Sometimes recruiters may tell you that, because often recruiters are paid on fee-based outcomes. So that is not always the case. Candidates are becoming much more project-based, particularly early in career candidates. They want to do much more meaningful work, and they think of their career more as a project than they do as a lifetime goal. So what they don't do is, this idea is completely diminished. This idea that you join a company in the mailroom and you're one day the CEO, that 40-year journey in a company. What they might do is, we see a lot more boomerang hires. We see people are interested in the work am I going to be doing. I want to do this because I'm interested in this work. And when this work stops being interesting, I want to do something else. And hopefully that's with your company, but it might be with somebody else. So that fulfillment, that self-actualization through work is becoming more prevalent. Wait for perfection. Do not wait for perfection, right? It's, 85% with potential is much more valuable to your business than delaying for 6 months to find a 9 out of 10. Right? Believe me, it's like, be smart, take an ecosystem view, look at all the different perspectives, understand people's gaps and help them with their gaps, but do not wait for perfection, right? Working with many suppliers is a good strategy. It is definitely not. If you work with many suppliers, they know that, and they won't value your business, and the people get the attention is the places where they think they have the most opportunity. Go deep with few, 1, 2, go really deep with them and have them integrate in your business, particularly in the startup stage. Have them really deeply understand your business so that they can support you and actually be good ambassadors and really work hard for you, because they're an extension of your company. Working with 15 recruitment agencies because you think that's the best way to hire somebody because it gives you scale, it does not give you quality of outcome, believe me. Everyone would or should want to work here. If it's your business, it's your passion, you think it's the best thing in the world. Everybody thinks that about their business that owns a business, of course, but candidates need to go on a journey. So, be prepared to sell your opportunity, your business, and your company. Position it, hand the controls over to the candidate, let them get comfortable with you, right? And so, everybody, the idea that everybody should want to work here or we're the best company, like it just doesn't, unless you can absolutely accurately tune into what their motivators are. It doesn't look like that. Supplier engagements have to be outcome-based. Most people think about recruitment support or talent support as, oh, well, if I hire somebody, I pay this fee. right? That's like a very traditional way my industry thinks about their recruitment services. That is one service of doing it. But actually buying time, buying capacity is also a model that I think is one. That's actually how I came into contact with Richard originally, is I was looking to augment capacity. I didn't care about outcomes. Like I was like, okay, I need to hire these 10 people. It's pretty niche. It's not economically viable for my team. And he's like, well, we can hire these 10 people and it's 10x a fee. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do 10x a fee. I have this amount of money. I want to spend this, and I'll give you this money. And I don't care whether I hire 5 people or 15. That's none of your business, because I'm buying your time, right? I'm buying your productivity. I'm buying your capacity, right? And the more progressive organizations think like that. Yes, it's still outcome based. If you've got one role, you should do it as a fee based thing. But actually, if you want a true partnership, start thinking about augmentation in your business and actually buying the organization's time, the recruiter's time, the people's time. Roles need to be treated equally. We covered that. I don't have the resources of bigger companies. It does not matter in the most part, right? Social is a big equalizer. Your attractiveness, your agility, your lack of antiquated, archaic, slow speed process means that you can move more quickly. They're still at a first interview with a big company, and you've already got them through your whole process and got them offered, and they're in, right? But also, the agile approach I talked about, the prioritization of roles, that's simple. I mean, you could do that if you have 4 requisitions, you should do that. That's like a just basic modeling of TA. Like, it's the thing no one who does my job talks about outside of a company, but that's like basic. Like, every company should be doing that, and it's good work. And there are lots of people on the market. There are categorically not. The market is getting much, much tighter. You sit, you wait, you think, okay, there's loads of people out there. Be fast, be decisive, and execute quickly. That's the biggest advice. Like, if you want to win in talent, that's what you should be doing. Like, be decisive and act quickly. That's how you win. Because if your competitors dither and kind of don't move with an agile and vigorous pace, you have an advantage. Talent's a competitive advantage. It's the best asset you'll have. And so to set yourself up for success with it. Okay.
This is your last one, Kevin.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so so I think I've kind of covered most of these. So vision and values, your company, talking about what sets you apart, ties EVP. Have informative attraction documentation. So a little bit what I shared, just take the time to do it. People care about it. People read it. Articulate a path. Like, what am I going to be doing? I'm going to scale up. What am I going to be doing? Choose the right strategy that works for you in terms of that prioritization, the execution, and the license to hire, the personas in the interviews, and set a process and stick to it. It's very tempting when you have ambiguity in your business or you have informality, is that you start bringing people. No. If you sit down and think about an optimal process and you take the time to design it properly, I guarantee you that'll still be the optimum process once you've been speaking to candidates. But as people start to be, I should see that person, or I have an interest, or you're going to meet the person that sits on the front desk because they're going to let you in every day and we want them to know your face. Like, it doesn't add any value to the process, right? Design the value of the process, architect it, and then stick to it. Have people meet them after you've offered them a job. Have people socialize with them after the event. Socialize the bios after. But stick to your process. It's really important from an agility perspective and a speed. Whew, okay, that's me done. I feel like I'm been talking a lot. But yeah, over to you. Back to you, Richard.
Thanks, Kevin. A lot of information there for everybody to take in, I suppose. So questions at the ready for when we move into the next phase. This is just finishing up, just talking about Fairlow and what we can offer. As Kevin mentioned, I mean, we did a number of different solutions with Kevin over the years, and happy to say I'm working with him still as he moved to a hyper growth organization in Salonis. But some of the things that we choose to look at and offer as a service with regards to the membership here is free consultancy services. So going in, assessing, seeing where you are as is, look at the future, look at how you want to get there, how that's going to pivot. So it involves, I spoke about a census as a company. I went in and did salary surveys, benchmarked, looked at workforce planning, skill-based research, looking at the skills that you are needing to get on board are actually out there or achievable. Where is the workforce located? So very, very agile from that perspective, and completely understand that each company is very different from that perspective. And the search for that permanent talent, as Kevin alluded to it. For me, it's about the partnership with companies. As you partner with the company, you're able to talk to candidates exactly about the organization that you're recruiting for, and really act as an employee for them. Listen, we totally understand in startup mode, people do have the networks. Everybody has the networks, and there probably won't be anybody on this call right now who hasn't, or maybe is currently trying to resource for themselves. I suppose I would put it like this: is if you were developing a new app, would you go out and try and learn the language to do so, or would you go and hire a developer? I know I would probably definitely hire a developer. So taking the pain away where possible, to use us as the professionals to go out and find permanent or contractor talent is what we're here for. Even as you move to the scale up, which Kevin spoke about in terms of the next stage, and when you're in growth strategy, and potentially looking to add talent people, that's the area that we can help with as well. We add those people and can search for those people for you as well. On the contractor side, I suppose it's worth noting that quite a lot of scale ups use the contractor resource. In the minute, IR35 is very prevalent in the news with the changes that are coming down the line, but we take that risk away. We're very aware of that from a contract perspective. So when you need to bring on contractors, we have the contracts in place to make sure you're not in danger of falling under that IR35 ban side of things. And that's quite important. That's something that lots of customers, even the large clients, are not completely aware of what IR35 means to them, but rest assured we do. So we're able to supply that very rapid turnaround and interim-based roles that you need. And just to finish off by saying, tailored solutions, whether it be a one-off or a team or a combination of both, or some services that we need, we're here to help. And happy to book in a call and have a conversation with anybody, even if it's about in 3 months' time we're going to be looking for this. Then we would like to work with you on that. Then it gives us the time. Another phrase that Kevin mentioned was recruitment active. So a census, that company that I recruited for, they told me last year they were potentially going to be looking for another team, the skill set that they were going to need. So in the last couple of months, I've been pipelining those candidates. So it makes it a lot easier for us to then, as soon as they flick the switch, if they come to us, then we've got those people available. So it makes the process very, very much easier. And that's basically all I have to say on that. Hopefully we'll have some questions from everybody for Kevin and myself. Handing back now, I think, to Ben.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Kevin and Richard. Fantastic presentation. And really grateful for your time and to get your experience there. We've had some great questions to kick us off, but just a reminder to everybody else, this is a fantastic opportunity. Richard and Kevin have got a wealth of experience in this field, so do take advantage of it. You know, whatever problems you're facing, whatever questions you might have, please do put them in the chat. But we'll start off with Yogesh. If you're there, Yogesh, please take yourself off mute.
Hi there. I'm Yogesh. I'm the founder of Neela. We are building innovative AI-driven products for restaurant sector. We all know that restaurants are struggling currently with COVID, but we're trying to get them or help them get out of this ditch faster. The question that I had was, we are also looking for or trying to hire senior developer at the moment. Mm-hmm. And I saw a couple of pointers that like looking into the network. So here we have two challenges: A, being early stage startup, giving that sort of a credibility and comfort from the startup perspective, that how do you attract the right talent that will then, get excited and stay with you. So that's one thing. And the second challenge is that if we were to then rely on the partners, recruiting partners, they obviously have a fees that they want to then work with. And then again, with startup, we do have some investment from investors, but one thing is we all need to be mindful that spending this cash wisely. So how do we go about, are there any cost-effective solutions that we can start tapping into?
Yeah, I mean, so for sure, so firstly, I think the EVP question is probably covered, like I said, at any scale. Understand your story and have your proposition. Like, many people people look at my profile and was like, yeah, Kevin's like, biggest job, like and I stepped down to go and be a person of greater impact, right? So I wanted to be closer to the work and have recruiters reporting directly into me again, because that was my journey. But I think on the spending investors cash wisely, it comes back to that partnership thing, right? Where you say, you know, if you say, okay, I'm going to throw this out to 5 agencies and they're all going to want to charge me like £6,000 to make a hire. If you choose the right partner and you say, okay, listen, that doesn't work for us because our model, like if I'm spending £6,000 on that, I'm not spending it on other things. There's all kind of models you can tap into. So one of the things, and I think Richard, I think you've done it for some clients, is actually have staggered payments, almost like contract payment terms, but for permanent hiring. So what you would have is, okay, well, I don't want to take, you know, I know that my revenue is growing. So how do I pay these fees in line with revenue growth? And in return, if you're partnering with the right company, you can then be like thinking about, okay, well, I want to do this for role 2 and role 3 and role 4, right? And so the flexibility and having that like deeper engagement comes from choosing a partner that's prepared to go on that journey with you. I know recruiters that have worked for stock. I know recruiters that work for delayed payments. I know recruiters that work for, you know, segmented payment and time series based payments, or, you know, that it scales up as the more hires you do. All these different kind of things. If you're working with the right partner, which is not a massive corporation but a boutique agency, then I think what you're going to have is you'll have a lot more flexibility where they'll be more sympathetic to what you're trying to do, and they'll be more part of your future success than just extracting. You know, they don't want one of a better phrase, like they want the 6K because they've got a business to run. But if they take the 6K and, you know, 12 stage payments of 500 quid, but actually what they do is they want to be getting it when you're spending 60K on recruitment fees, when you've tripled and quadrupled in size. That's the better partnership, right? And that they're more tapped into helping you kind of create that value. So Richard, I don't know if you got a comment. I mean, I remember that I only remember that because I remember when I met somebody you work with and they called out that you'd done this kind of differentiated payment on occasion. I don't know if it was situational to that business, but it's something you'd looked at.
Yeah, I mean, it's the agility thing, Yogesh, I suppose, and different, as I said before, tailored solutions for certain scenarios. If you're looking for developers at the minute and you're trying to do it yourself, you will quickly realize the market is, as we outlined, the market is fierce from a competition perspective. You're right, yeah. I mean, recruiters know that and take advantage of that. But as I say, if it's partnerships that we're entering into, then we can be a lot more flexible and accommodating and reactive to scenarios to help out. So happy to jump on a call, Yogesh, tomorrow. Not this evening, probably, I would imagine. Happy to jump on a call tomorrow, and you can tell me a little bit more about it and see if we can help.
Yeah, I'll drop you a line, Richard.
No problem.
Yeah.
Look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you, Yogesh. Thank you. Next, Venkatesh, I believe you had a similar question.
Oh, hello. I actually run a HR tech startup. Basically, like we utilize the power of AI and machine learning in understanding the way recruitment actually happens, and then try to actually fix up some of the issues. I have a lot of friends and connections in the recruitment industry who gave me input to help them in doing day-to-day activities, starting from job search and matching the job with the candidate to the whole recruitment process. My question is, like, for example, my startup is a bootstrap startup. Actually, I didn't actually go for funding initially. Mm-hmm. And what I did was I relied on resources from Upwork and other places. I was happy with people. I changed like 2 or 3 UX expert. I was okay with that. But when it comes to actually a developer or someone who is going to develop something for you, as I'm continuing what Yogesh was having as a concern, what actually you think is it makes a developer to stick to a startup? So basically, like, with the current market going, soon everybody will realize what is actually the IR35 on private sector is going to impact, and soon people will start to hire contractors, and then market is going to come back alive. And once that happens, people will actually leave. Even it is a startup, it's in a very dire situation. They leave the startups and then go back to contracting and all. So what actually you feel is something which I think I got a partial answer from your presentation. It's something like they want people wanted to work as a project actually, rather than kind of a long-term relationship. So how do we make sure that continuum exists in the resources we are hiring?
Yeah. Listen, I had a scenario like that last year where a company were looking for a principal engineer. Super niche skill set, so difficult to find. but we took the project on. We went out and we conducted a search for 4 weeks. We agreed, and we came back. We presented a short list of 4 people. One guy stood out more than everybody else, but guess what? His salary was way up here. Everybody else's salary was down here. But I had the conversations with the candidate who I thought was going to be the front leader. And again, he was looking for the project-based nature of it. He was coming from contracting, which begged that question about, well, if the contract market comes back, will he go? So then I went and had the conversation with the client and explained that. So this is the best person for the job. We've got these other people as well who are very, very good. I think you should interview them all, but just to be aware, he's coming from the contract. He's looking for this much. The manager went white. He did give some expletives as well at that point. But then we came up with a suggestion that, what about stock options? Stock options invest in 3 years. Then you get them for 3 years, right? And make those stock options viable. So it's not pie in the sky, but it's actually achievable. And guess what? When he got, I knew when I got him in front of the client and what they were looking to do and the technologies that they were working with, he'd be interested. And we got the salary down on the basis of the stock options there. So a double benefit there was that they have that guy for 3 years. The company's stock options are steady and they're going up. They went down a little bit. Ironically, he started just as COVID hit, so he got the stock options at a lower price. So he's even done better out of it, that they've recovered quite quickly. So I mean, that's one that springs to mind with regards to that in terms of ownership and maintaining the candidates. But then, I mean, I'm not sure what your circumstances are, Venkatesh, and of course we can have a chat about it. But I mean, it could be a situation that you may utilize the services of a contractor. The contract market's not coming back this year. Definitely not. I've been through IR35 with the public sector before. I know how this works. I know how well. I'm connected to government inside as well. So it could be, and I've done this year and towards the end of last year, where clients were looking for contractors and they were thinking it's going to cost them £600 per day, and the reality is you get them for 300 because there's more people on the market. So a contractor for 50% discount of what they're looking for previously is still much cheaper if you only need them for a certain space of time, and you get them for that, and they do the job and then they move on. So those are 2 things that I would put forward. I don't know if Kevin has anything else that he would add to that.
No, I think you're right, and I think so often companies, when they think about stock in startup stage, you think it's for a bigger destination, but having virtual stock options, because obviously if you're not if you don't want to dilute from an ownership perspective, you can create virtual stock option platforms so that you can create ownership and attachment. But I think Richard's point's a valid point is, if it's a situational need, then leverage the differentiated types of working, which includes part-time. There's a lot of people part-time, a lot of returns to work, a lot of people co-studying, to the Upworks, the Fivers, etc. They are valuable resources, but it's not limited to them. You can actually employ people on long-term engagements on differentiated approaches. So,
by all means, drop me a line, Venkatesh, and we can have a conversation tomorrow.
Sure, Richard.
Thank you.
Good. Next question is from long-term EC member Marco Scotti, but I think he may have dropped off the call at the end of the presentation. Marco, are you there? I think he may have gone. I'll read this one out.
Postcard.
This is one for you, Kevin. I believe when hiring for startups, personal compatibility is much more valuable than for corporates. Would you agree? And how would you balance that versus performance with limited reach availability of candidates?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's you know, we're in the lucky position where, you know, quite often we get to choose the people we work with in many cases. And if you're in a startup or a scale-up environment, then the level of intimacy of working relationships is a lot higher. But it doesn't necessarily mean you should do one or two things. Your organization, you're not going to drive organizational health if you hire people in your own image. So people that just look like you and act like you and create no value back at you, because you're just projecting yourself through your organization. So I think the first thing is making sure that, you know, there's some key things that you want from a compatibility perspective, like they should be aligned to your values personally, or they should have a certain view on what you're building or what you're creating or making or producing. It should synchronize. But the most overlooked area of diversity, when people talk about diversity, they talk a lot about gender, race, ethnicity, all these different things. Neurodiversity and actually having diverse thinking in a company is really, really important, especially as you're going to grow, and having people that surround you with challenges. I know some people in very successful scale-ups where, you know, they're very close and very early stage people. They've got very successful businesses 15, 20 years later, but they push back on each other continually. And that's a really important part of their dynamic, is that they feel that they're not just, you know, eating food from ordering the same thing off the menu or eating food from the same trough or whatever, right? And so I think it's a factor that you should have some degree of compatibility, because you got to work more intimately with these people. But don't just replicate yourself. Don't hire in your own image. Add a different flavor of the same product if that's what you're going to do.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Brilliant. Well, we should probably look at wrapping up. We're running a little over, but I'd just like to stress to everyone on the call, we're super lucky to have the option to have a free consultation with Richard, with Kevin, to be able to tap into that wealth of experience. So please do remember to take advantage